I've posted in the past some content about the possible return of an NFL 2K video game. There's been some developments on that front the past week, so I thought I would go ahead and spend a few minutes to talk about that as a follow-up to those previous videos. But first, a little bit of a refresher on where we currently stand. Back in 2020, Take-Two, which is the parent company of 2K Games and 2K Sports, made news by signing some kind of unspecified licensing deal with the NFL that would allow it to make new NFL licensed football games. The catch was that any game developed by Take-Two could not be a simulation game, since Electronic Arts still held exclusive rights to simulation NFL football video games. In any case, this news got football gamers excited. We weren't quite sure what Take-Two would come up with. After all, what did non-simulation even mean? Did it mean that the game couldn't have realistic physics, couldn't be 11 on 11, couldn't have a franchise mode? Would it be something along the lines of NFL Street or NFL Blitz or EA's The Yard? Would it just be a 2K version of Ultimate Team, but without any kind of franchise mode to appeal to sim gamers like myself and probably most of the people who watch my channel for my football content? In any case, it would have been nice to have a big budget alternative to EA's games. It is now 2026, so it has been 6 years, and nothing has come out of that licensing deal except for a mobile-only card-collecting game called NFL 2K Playmakers. I did not play it, and apparently neither did most of you, as it did not sell well and was shut down after only like a year. Well, after years of radio silence on the issue, we now actually have a better idea of what's going on, and why there haven't been any announcements from Take-Two or 2K about any future NFL 2K games. And unfortunately, it looks like that's because they've decided to cancel it. Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick had an interview with Game Files this past week, in which he broke the news to the interviewer that the company is no longer actively developing an NFL football game. The full interview was blocked behind a paywall, so I could not read it in its entirety, and I had to rely on other outlets such as Insider Gaming to summarize the interview. According to Zelnick, none of Take-Two's ideas for a non-simulation game ever really panned out. The designers apparently went through multiple iterations of different concepts, stopping and restarting development several times during the past few years, but were ultimately unable to come up with any ideas or prototypes that the executives felt would appeal to a wide enough market to justify the costs of the NFL license and developing a game. Or maybe, I don't know, they just couldn't come up with any ideas that the executives felt they could adequately monetize. Who knows? I always take CEO comments like these with a certain degree of cynical side-eye. Personally, I feel that Take-Two should not have bothered with an NFL license to begin with. Remember that it was the NFL that keeps insisting on giving EA the exclusive license. It isn't a case of EA outbidding everyone for it, which is, what we thought for years. So it seems like the NFL isn't very interested in deals with Take-Two, and may in fact be openly hostile to the idea. So Take-Two trying to compete against Madden with an NFL licensed game just seemed like an uphill battle from the start. Instead, I think that Take-Two should have tried to jump into the college football market back around 2020. Even if they wouldn't have been able to use real NCAA players due to the name and likeness issue not having been fully resolved at that point, I'm pretty sure that football gamers would still have jumped at the chance to play a game. After all, it would have filled not one, but two niches that gamers were desperately jonesing for. That being a new college football game to fill the shoes that EA had left behind after canceling NCAA football after NCAA Football 14, and also a new 2K football game to follow up on NFL 2K5 and All-Pro Football 2K8. Unfortunately, EA also ended up beating Take-Two to the college football market as well when EA Sports College Football came back in, 2024? I've heard conflicting reports about whether the NCAA conference or school licenses are exclusive to EA, so I'm not sure if 2K could, at this point, make a college football game, even if they wanted to. Maybe they can't. It's also worth pointing out that 2K did make college football games back on the PS2, but they were not very well received. They lacked the depth and polish of the contemporary NFL 2K games, and they were far behind EA's NCAA football games at that time. So maybe 2K just never trusted themselves to make a college game. Zelnick did, however, in this interview, leave the door open for the possibility that Take-Two might return to the idea of a football game in the future if they can come up with a concept that seems like it might appeal to audiences and also meet the strict non-simulation requirements that the NFL has imposed on them for the license. If an NFL or NCAA licensed game is simply not viable, then maybe Take-Two should pursue a licensing deal with someone like the UFL. That would allow them to produce a licensed football game and build it with a simulation game engine and a full franchise mode. No, obviously it wouldn't have the same market appeal as an NFL licensed game, but the expectations also would not be nearly so high, which would mean that the development costs, including the license, would be a lot cheaper for the studio, so it would be a lot less risk from a financial standpoint. Such a game could still be commercially viable if Take-Two were willing to approach it as more of a AA title that isn't directly competing with Madden and college football. The biggest risk with such a plan would, of course, be the not entirely stable nature of the UFL as a league. Will it last another 2 or 3 years, which is the length of time that it would take for Take-Two to develop a new game? Who knows? It might not. It might fold after this year. I certainly hope not. I've had a good time watching UFL games and, betting on them. Even went to the first UFL championship game a couple years ago in St. Louis. Good time. Lots of good barbecue. In any case, if Take-Two thinks that the UFL is likely to stick around, then a UFL 2K game could potentially serve as a proof of concept to convince the NFL that they are actually leaving money on the table by continuing to enforce this exclusivity deal with EA. Of course, Take-Two and 2K would have to wait until 2031, since that's when the current exclusivity deal between the NFL and EA expires. Or, I don't know, maybe Take-Two could look into licensing the Canadian Football League. I don't know how much of a market there would be for that, but again, I think right now people are just clamoring for any alternative to EA football, right? So far, indie games like Maximum Football and Axis Football haven't really been, good enough quality or polished enough for most people to take seriously as competitors or alternatives to Madden. But a 2K developed game, whether it's licensed, unlicensed, or UFL, CFL, indoor football league, flag football, whatever, I think that would be a big enough deal that people would buy it, no matter what. And I really do think that if Take-Two were to look at it more of a AA quality game, a mid-budget game, they would minimize their risk and they would dramatically increase the likelihood that such a game would be commercially viable, even if it doesn't sell, tens of millions of copies like Madden does, right? Maybe just a couple million copies would be enough for the game to be successful and to get its money back. Anyway, that's my idea. Mr. Zelnick, take it or leave it, I guess. I do hope that we see a 2K football game at some point in the not too distant future, though at this point it looks like that's probably not going to happen, not in my lifetime, or at least not in my useful gaming lifetime. Maybe by the time a competitor to EA Sports comes out with a new football game, I'll be so old and arthritic and half blind that I won't be able to play or enjoy it. But we'll see. We'll see. Sorry for the bad news, but that's the way of things. Thanks for watching, and hope you have a pleasant day. In the meantime, if you're looking for an alternative to Madden, I invite you to check out my ongoing Let's Play, with commentary, of Axis Football 2026's franchise mode on my sister channel Mega Bears Fan Plays. In addition to seeing the game in action, you can listen to my unfiltered thoughts on the game in real time as I play, both positive and negative. New episodes are released early to patrons before being released to the general public. If you'd like to see new content early, you can do so by becoming a patron for just $1 or $2 a month. My channel is not monetized at all, since I use a lot of copywritten content. It should all be protected by fair use, but that doesn't stop YouTube from issuing warnings or strikes or demonetizing videos. So in order to avoid having to censor myself based on YouTube's constantly changing rules, I just don't monetize the channel at all. And so the only financial compensation I get from my content creation efforts comes from the donations of generous viewers like you. Thank you to all my patrons, past, present, and future. I hope you'll join them.